I just found out my wife secretly transferred $250, $0 from our joint account to her brother's offshore account right before filing for divorce. Now she's claiming I'm trying to steal everything, but I have proof she's been planning this for months. I never thought I'd be the guy writing something like this, but here I am. Just when I thought I knew everything about my wife, Emily, she pulls the rug out from under me in the most brutal way possible. The craziest part. It all started with a simple, almost innocent feeling that something was off, like a gut instinct that turned out to be right. And what I found was so far beyond what I expected, I still can't believe I missed the signs for so long. Emily and I had been together for about 8 years. We met in college, got married right after graduation, and for the most part, things seemed good. We had our ups and downs, sure, but I thought we were solid. She was beautiful, ambitious, and she always knew how to keep me interested, or so I thought. It all started a few months ago. She started working late more often, claiming it was just her new project at work or some client meeting she couldn't avoid. At first, I bought it. She's a sales executive, so late nights are part of the job, right? But then I noticed her phone acting weird. She'd hide her texts, delete recent calls, and she became super secretive about her messages. Little things, but enough to make me suspicious. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was going on. Then one night I came home early from work because I wasn't feeling well. I caught her in a rush to hide her phone when I walked in. She was acting nervous, and her excuses about being on a conference call or checking work emails didn't add up. I didn't want to push her, but I kept feeling like I was missing something huge. The next day, I decided to check her phone when she was in the shower. It's not something I'm proud of, but I just needed to know the truth. What I found was shocking. Texts, pictures, and messages that clearly showed she'd been seeing someone else. A guy named Jake. They'd been exchanging flirty messages for months, and there were even explicit sex texts. I saw photos of her in bed with him, and they weren't just friends hanging out. She was lying to me about everything, pretending she was working late when she was actually with him. I felt my stomach drop. It was like the ground gave way beneath me. I didn't confront her right away. I needed to think to process what I'd seen. But I knew I couldn't keep quiet. The betrayal was too deep. I started digging into her phone history, her emails, her bank accounts, and what I uncovered made my blood boil. She transferred $250, $0 from our joint account to her brother's offshore account right before she filed for divorce. She'd been planning this for months, probably even longer. That's when I realized this wasn't just about the affair. She was trying to wipe us out financially, probably to make sure I wouldn't be able to fight her in court. I was furious. How could she do this? How could she lie to my face for years? I felt so betrayed, so humiliated. I'd always trusted her, and now I saw she'd been planning her escape while I was oblivious. I wanted to confront her immediately, but I knew I needed a plan. I couldn't let her spin some story to make me look like the bad guy. I had proof, hard evidence, and I was determined to use it. That's where I am now. Sitting here, replaying everything in my head, trying to figure out what I do next. I know she's going to deny everything, call me crazy, or accuse me of trying to steal from her. She's always been good at twisting things around. But I have the proof, and I'm not backing down. I just hope I can get through this without losing myself completely. After I found out about the affair and the offshore transfer, everything changed. I was caught in this whirlwind of shock, anger, and disbelief. I couldn't sleep, couldn't focus. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her in bed with Jake, her texts, the money disappearing from our account. It was like my world was collapsing around me, and I was standing in the middle of a storm I didn't know how to weather. The first thing I did was confront her. I couldn't hold it in anymore. I waited until she was home from her business trip, which I now knew was just a cover for her secret meetings. I told her I knew everything, the affair, the money, the lies. Her face twisted into this bitchy smirk like she was amused that I found out. She looked me dead in the eyes and said, "You're crazy. You're just trying to control everything. Jake and I are just friends. You're overreacting." That's when I saw her true colors, cold, manipulative, and completely unrepentant. I lost my temper. I told her I had proof of the affair, including the explicit texts and photos. I told her about the offshore account, the transfer, her plans to leave me high and dry. Her reaction? She started lying even more, claiming that I was just jealous and insecure, that I was trying to ruin her career, her reputation. She said she was tired of living a lie, but the way she said it, I knew she was just trying to manipulate me, turn the tables, make me feel guilty. She accused me of trying to steal her money, which made me furious. I had the proof, and she was trying to spin it as if I was the bad guy. That night I didn't sleep. I kept replaying everything, her words, her lies, the betrayal. I felt a deep ache in my chest, like I'd been punched in the gut. It wasn't just about the money or the affair. It was the sense that I'd been living a lie for years. How could she do this to me? How could she lie so blatantly, cheat behind my back, then deny everything when I caught her? The feeling of betrayal was overwhelming. I wanted to scream, cry, break something, anything to release the fury inside me. The next few days were a blur. I started gathering all the evidence I could find, screenshots of the texts, bank records, her emails. I wanted to be prepared. I knew she'd deny everything, spin stories, and try to gaslight me. I also decided I needed to talk to a lawyer. I couldn't just confront her and hope for the best. I needed to protect myself, my money, and my rights. I was planning my next move carefully because I knew this was just the beginning of a long, ugly fight. Meanwhile, Emily kept up her act. She was bitchy, dismissive, and manipulative. She told me I was paranoid, that I was making everything up. She claimed I was trying to control her, that I didn't trust her. She insisted she loved me, but I knew better. I saw the truth in her texts, her actions, her bank transfers. The way she looked at me, like she was already done with us, made my stomach turn. She was planning her escape, and I was just in her way. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind. For years, I thought we had a good life. Now I realized she'd been planning this for months, maybe longer. All the signs were there, but I refused to see them. I trusted her too much. That was my mistake. Now I was left with a sinking feeling in my chest, a mix of heartbreak and rage. I didn't know how I was going to get through this, but I knew I had to fight. Not just for the money, not just for the betrayal, but for my own sanity and dignity. I couldn't let her destroy me without a fight. After confronting Emily that night, I knew I had to act fast. The accusations and evidence I had laid out seemed to shock her, but her reactions were more about damage control than genuine remorse. She kept insisting that I was overreacting, that I was paranoid, and that I was trying to ruin her reputation. Honestly, I could see right through her bullshit. She was good at lying, but I wasn't about to let her manipulate me into backing down. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. My mind was racing, trying to piece everything together. The affair, the money transfer, her cold denial, all of it. I knew I couldn't just sit around waiting for her to admit the truth or change her mind. I had to get legal advice and figure out what my options were. I reached out to a divorce attorney I found through a recommendation. I explained everything, her infidelity, the offshore account, the huge transfer of funds, and asked what I could do to protect myself. The lawyer, a no-nonsense woman named Lisa, listened carefully. She told me that I had a solid case, especially with the proof I'd gathered. She explained that the offshore transfer was a clear sign of her attempt to hide assets and that I could use that in court. She also warned me that Emily might try to spin things around, accuse me of being controlling, or even accuse me of infidelity myself. That was typical. She'd been so good at gaslighting me, I knew she'd try to turn the tables. She advised me to document everything, keep all communications, and avoid any confrontations that could be used against me later. Her words hit home. I realized I'd been too emotional, too reactive. I needed to stay calm and strategic. I also decided I had to get my own financial affairs in order. I transferred some money into my own account, changed passwords, and started building a safety net. I knew Emily was planning to leave, possibly take the money, and I couldn't let her leave with everything. Meanwhile, she kept up her act. She was bitchy, dismissive, and manipulative. She told me I was paranoid, that I was making everything up. She claimed I was trying to control her, that I didn't trust her. She insisted she loved me, but I knew better. I saw the truth in her texts, her actions, her bank transfers, the way she looked at Me like she was already done with us made my stomach turn. She was planning her escape and I was just in her way. Over the next few days, I started noticing more signs. She was packing her bags, hiding her phone even more, and making little excuses to leave the house alone. I caught her on her phone late at night, whispering and texting. It was obvious she was planning something. Every instinct told me she was preparing to run, to take the money and leave me behind. That's when I decided I couldn't wait any longer. I had to act before she slipped away completely. I scheduled a meeting with my lawyer to discuss filing for a temporary restraining order. I wanted to prevent her from taking any more money or hiding assets. I also wanted to ensure she couldn't leave the state with our funds. The lawyer agreed it was a good idea, especially given the offshore transfer and her suspicious behavior. I felt a strange mix of relief and anxiety. Relief because I finally had a plan, but anxiety because I knew Emily was dangerous when she felt cornered. While all this was happening, Emily's attitude grew even more bitchy and confrontational. She accused me of being unreasonable, said I was trying to control her life, and that I was just jealous of Jake. That was her go-to line: blame the other guy, accuse me of being insecure. But I saw through her lies. I knew she was trying to cover her tracks, to fake a perfect image while secretly planning her escape. I didn't trust her anymore, and I knew I had to stay one step ahead. I also started talking to friends and family, trying to get support and advice. Some told me to fight for the marriage, but I knew better. My gut told me she'd been lying for months, maybe longer, and I didn't want to be blind again. I was ready to divorce, to take back control of my life. But I also felt this deep, aching sadness. I'd loved her once, and now I was losing her, not just as a partner, but as the person I thought I knew. That pain was almost worse than the betrayal itself. Now I'm waiting for the court date to get the temporary restraining order. I'm trying to stay calm, keep my head clear, and prepare myself for the worst. I don't know what Emily's next move will be, but I do know she's dangerous when she feels cornered. I've learned a lot about trust and deception, and honestly, I feel like I've been hit hard enough to never trust someone blindly again. The biggest lesson: watch the money, watch the signs, and never ignore that gut feeling. The court date for the temporary restraining order arrived faster than I expected. Honestly, I was a nervous wreck. My stomach was in knots and I kept second-guessing myself. I knew Emily was probably going to fight tooth and nail, spin some sob story, and pretend she was the victim. But I also knew I had the proof on my side: the texts, the bank transfers, the suspicious behavior. Still, walking into that courtroom, I felt like I was walking into a battle I might not win. Emily showed up with her usual bitchy smirk. She looked good, too good, like she was trying to look innocent, but I saw right through it. Her lawyer tried to make her look like the victim, claiming I was trying to control her, that I was paranoid and abusive. I kept my cool, presenting the evidence I'd collected. I handed over screenshots of her explicit texts with Jake, the bank records showing the offshore transfer, and the emails where she discussed her plans to leave me. The judge listened carefully, and I could see her eyes narrowing as I laid everything out. When Emily tried to deny the affair, claiming she was just talking to Jake as a friend, I presented the photos of her in bed with him, the explicit texts, and the timestamps matching her late-night calls. I could tell the judge was impressed by the concrete evidence. When I explained the offshore transfer, her lawyer's face fell. They knew they were losing this round. The judge granted the temporary restraining order. It prevented Emily from taking any more money out of our accounts, barred her from contacting me or our kids if we had any. Thank God we didn't, and ordered her not to leave the state with any assets. I felt a small sense of relief, but mostly I was exhausted. This was just the beginning, and I knew Emily wouldn't go down without a fight. Still, I had the upper hand for now. After the hearing, I went straight to my lawyer's office. We discussed the next steps: filing for divorce, freezing assets, and how to protect myself from her retaliation. She warned me that Emily might try to come back and make me look like the villain, especially given how manipulative she was. I nodded, knowing I had to stay sharp. I also changed all my passwords, closed joint accounts I didn't trust anymore, and started building a separate financial safety net. I couldn't risk her draining everything or disappearing with the money. That night I sat alone in my apartment, feeling drained but somehow more in control. I kept replaying everything, her sneaky texts, her sneering face in court, the offshore transfer. It hit me how much I'd been blind for years. I loved her, sure, but I'd also been so trusting, too trusting. She took advantage of that. I realized I'd spent so long trying to make this work, trying to get her to love me back, that I ignored the warning signs. Now I was paying the price. I knew she'd be furious. Emily was the type to lash out when cornered. I also knew she'd try to manipulate her way out of this mess, probably spin some story about how I was trying to ruin her life. But I had the proof, and I was ready for whatever she threw at me. The thing that scared me the most was how cold she'd become, the way she looked at me with no remorse, no regret, like I was just some obstacle she needed to get around to get what she wanted. As I sat there, I started thinking about what this all meant, about trust, betrayal, and the importance of watching the signs before they get so bad. I realized that no matter how much I loved her, I couldn't fix this. Not anymore. She was gone, at least as far as I was concerned. The only thing I could do now was protect myself, move forward, and rebuild. It's hard to accept, but I knew deep down I'd be better off without her if this was how she chose to treat me. I also started reflecting on the lessons I'd learned. Never ignore your instincts. Always keep a close eye on the money. And most importantly, don't be afraid to stand up for yourself, even if it means losing someone you once loved. Because in the end, your own sanity and integrity matter more than any relationship built on lies and betrayal. I'm not sure what the future holds, but I know I'm done being naive. I'm done being a victim. Now, I'm just trying to pick up the pieces and figure out how to move on. The days following the court hearing felt like a blur. I was moving through everything in a state of shock and determination, trying to get my life back on track while also preparing for the inevitable fallout. Emily, of course, didn't take the restraining order lightly. She responded with her usual bitchy attitude, throwing accusations, claiming I was just trying to ruin her reputation, and insisting she was the real victim here. She denied everything, even when I handed her the proof. It was like talking to a wall. She just spun her lies, trying to paint herself as the wronged wife. I knew she'd escalate her manipulations, so I stayed cautious. I kept all the evidence organized and made sure I had copies of everything. I also contacted my bank to freeze our joint accounts, making sure she couldn't drain any more money. That was a huge relief because I knew the offshore transfer was just the tip of the iceberg. She'd been planning this for months, probably longer, and I had to be ready for her next move. Meanwhile, I started talking to divorce lawyers seriously. I wanted to make sure I was protected and that I could get a fair settlement, especially considering the money she'd transferred offshore. I also learned that the offshore account was just the beginning. She'd been hiding assets, probably stashing money in other places I didn't even know about. That realization made me more determined to fight for what's rightfully mine. Emotionally, I was a mess. I felt betrayed, angry, and deeply hurt, like I'd been punched in the gut every single day. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs. How did she manage to keep this secret from me so long? Was I just blind? Did I love her too much to see what was really happening? I kept replaying the moments when she was bitchy, dismissive, or overly defensive. Every little detail now felt like a piece of a much bigger puzzle I'd ignored for years. There was also this lingering guilt, like I should have seen it coming. I kept thinking about all the times she was late or distracted, the little lies she told about where she was or who she was with. I was furious at myself for not noticing sooner, but then I remembered. She was good at hiding her tracks, and honestly, she knew how to manipulate me, how to make me doubt myself. That realization made my blood boil even more. As I started to get my affairs in order, I realized I needed to distance myself from her emotionally. I couldn't let her continue to control the narrative or manipulate me into feeling guilty. I had to stay strong. I also started seeing a therapist to help process everything: the betrayal, the heartbreak, the anger. It's been a rough ride, but I knew I couldn't let this define me. One thing I learned the hard way is how important it is to trust your instincts. If something feels off, it probably is. And never ignore the small signs, those little gut feelings that tell you something isn't right. Because in the end, ignoring them only makes things worse. I also realized that money is a powerful weapon. She tried to hide assets, but I had to be relentless to uncover the truth. That offshore transfer was her way of trying to run away from her responsibilities, and I wasn't going to let her get away with it. Now I'm preparing for the next phase, divorce proceedings. I know she'll fight dirty, try to smear my name and twist everything around. But I have the evidence and I'm ready. I just want this nightmare to be over so I can start rebuilding my life. It's not easy, and I still feel the sting of betrayal every day, but I'm determined to come out of this stronger. Because at the end of the day, I know I deserve honesty, respect, and someone who truly cares, something Emily clearly couldn't give me anymore. Looking back now, I realize how much this whole ordeal has changed me. I used to believe in the fairy tale version of marriage, trust, love, loyalty. But now I see that sometimes people hide their true selves behind a mask, and the betrayal can hit you like a freight train when you least expect it. Emily's actions, her affair, the offshore money transfer, her manipulative lies, taught me a brutal lesson. Never take trust for granted and always keep your eyes open. The divorce is finalized. Now, it was messy, of course. Emily fought hard trying to smear my name, claiming I was the one who was controlling and jealous. She even accused me of trying to steal her money despite all the evidence I had. But I stood my ground. The court saw through her lies, especially with the proof of her affair and the offshore transfer. I managed to get a fair settlement. Some of the offshore funds were recovered, and I kept what was legally mine. In the end, I realized I had to let go of the anger and pain. It wasn't easy. Some nights I'd lie awake replaying everything, feeling that sting of betrayal. But I also knew I had to move forward. I started focusing on myself, my health, my career, my future. I threw myself into work, started going to therapy, and reconnected with friends I'd neglected during our marriage. Slowly, I began to rebuild my confidence and trust in myself again. What I've learned from all this is simple but profound. Trust your instincts. Watch the money and the small signs. Those are often the first clues something's wrong. Don't ignore your gut feeling, no matter how much you love someone. People can hide their true intentions behind a pretty face or a convincing story. And most importantly, don't be afraid to stand up for yourself. If I hadn't fought back, I'd probably be broken, and stuck in a nightmare I couldn't escape. To anyone out there going through something similar, I want to say this: you're not alone. It's painful and it hurts like hell, but you'll get through it. Trust the evidence, rely on your strength, and don't let anyone manipulate or gaslight you. Your worth isn't determined by someone else's lies or betrayal. Take care of yourself first, and remember, sometimes walking away is the only way to find peace again. Now I'm slowly building a new life, one where honesty and respect matter. It's not perfect and I still have scars, but I'm healing. I've learned that even after the deepest betrayal, there's hope for a better tomorrow. And that, in the end, is what keeps me going.